Hey guys, I'm John. Welcome back to my channel. I am here at Paul's Pizza with my big blue beautiful Alberta flag, showing my support for Alberta independence. And there is a party going on inside there right now. And I stepped out to get some fresh air. And I met this gentleman right here. His name's
Richard Anderton.
There was another guy named George, and I met him at the same time.
Yeah.
Richard, you gave me a special gift. What did you give me?
I gave you my book. I've just published this. It asks the question, is Alberta independence really necessary, or is there another way? John, the book is really focused and targeted to the undecided voter.
Yeah.
Because I know there's a lot of information that is presented at all the meetings that we do, but most of the people who are undecided voters, they're not coming to our meetings.
Yeah.
And so what I really want to do is encourage people that are in favor of Alberta independence, get this book into the hands of your friends and your relatives, your coworkers, your neighbors. It really goes through a logical process of explaining and understanding all the arguments for and against of why people are for independence in a way that the regular person can understand it.
Well, I'm going to use it for ideas for my videos, because sometimes, well, that's what I do. I call it cheating, right? It's like I go and I what are other people saying, smart people, and then I try to repeat what they say. I mean, that's just how you do this, right? But
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, that's what I'm going to use it for. I'm going to read it. Tell us the
Absolutely.
logical flow of it, because you actually started off as a pretty interesting, intriguing kind of logical flow that you set these chapters up with.
Yeah. Well, the first section starts with it's all about the money. And obviously I'm going to address the whole equalization formula there. Yeah. And most people don't realize that there's 37 MPs that represent Alberta, members of parliament that represent Alberta, that send money in equalization formula to Ottawa. Yeah. But there's 246 MPs that benefit from our equalization formula. 246 against 37. Are we ever going to be able to change that?
No.
Never.
No.
Never. And so I outline that in the book. And the first section is, it's all about the money. That's where I explain that. But then you realize, if you've been talking about this at all for very long, you realize, oh, it's not about the money at all. And I dive into more of the issues. It's really about control. It's about being able to, declare your own independence and make decisions about your own life. That's really what the second section is about.
It's about freedom.
It really is.
And like, that's really for me. Like all these issues like equalization and stuff like that, they're big issues, but they're kind of small compared to the bigger issue, where it's like the direction our country's headed is like a dystopian, totalitarian dictatorship. Where we have no free speech anymore. We're feared to say things that our conscience tells us to say, and the government controls every aspect of our life. Like you have to access the internet with an ID.
Here's just one quick example.
Yeah.
Last year, Danielle Smith mentioned it's about $25 billion a year for equalization.
Yeah.
Do you know what it is this year, according to Scott Moe?
I have no idea.
It's $27 billion. That's an 8% increase in 1 year. Did they ask permission? Did they consult with Alberta? Did they ask anyone? No. And so that's the future that we have right now as part of Canada, is we just keep getting taxed more and more and more without any consent or representation to say, let's not do that.
Does your book explain how equalization works? Because this is a confusing thing that I admit I've got a better idea than most, but it's still kind of hard to wrap your head around.
It does.
It's not like Alberta just sends the money to Quebec.
Right.
Yeah, that's
no, it does. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's right in chapter 2 or 3. Yeah. So it does explain how it works. Yeah. In as much sort of layman's terms as possible, because I know that my reader, it wasn't designed to be, for an accountant or an engineer. It's for the common man.
Yeah. So just like, am I correct then? So we pay our federal taxes, they go into a big pot, and then there's a complicated formula that decides how the provinces are going to get the money based off of their needs. Is that the basic outline?
Yes.
Yeah.
But what's interesting, and there's details in the book, is Quebec has trillions of cubic feet of natural gas in the ground, and they're not developing it. Yeah. Well, shouldn't that be part of the formula?
Yeah.
You've got a resource available and you're not developing it?
Yeah. So it's only assets that are productive,
Yes.
that are counted. It's not the potential that's counted, and that's what frustrates Albertans, because we're like, wait a minute, you could be doing a lot better, but you have policies that are handicapping yourself, and we have the opposite policies, and you want to handicap us, and we're still expected to pay.
Yes, that's exactly it. And there's actually some quotes in there that Premier Danielle Smith has made mention of, and they're in there about a former premier of Quebec.
Yeah.
They don't want to develop their resources because they know if they do, it will lower their equalization formula from Alberta.
Yeah. So, but again, like for me, equalization, actually I'll confess, I voted to keep it in the referendum, Jason Kenney's referendum. I voted to keep it because I thought, you know what, let's share with the rest of Canada, right? That to me was like, I want everybody in Newfoundland to have the same health care that we have here, right? And that made sense to me. But what changed my mind is when it's like, wait a minute, all these policies that are blocking us from being able to develop our resources and pay into equalization and get wealthy, right? All these things, and then thank you. And then we're still expected to pay. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
And I just there's another thing that's really important that people understand, John, is people are afraid to do new things. Most people are afraid to do something new. And one of the things that I address in real detail in the last third of the book is that there are other nations that are brand new in my lifetime. In the last 75 years, there have been 80 brand new nations formed. Like these are words. Imagine this. These are words that if you said them out loud to my grandparents, they would have no idea what you were talking about.
Yeah.
These are new nations that have been formed in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And if you think about it as well, these are in places like near Russia and in Africa. They're nowhere near as advanced as we are. People say, oh, you can't become a new nation. Absolutely we can. We absolutely can.
So what do we need to be a nation? What are like the fundamental things to be viable as a nation? Because like, I'm thinking, okay, we need a shared vision for the future, a shared culture, shared things like that. Like, what do we need?
So some of the things that people push back on often about, oh, what are you going to do about this? Currency is one of those things, right? We would need our own currency.
But we don't need that to be a nation. Right? Like lots of nations exist and they share other nations' currencies.
And that's a really good point to bring up, is that I don't know if you've traveled the world or not. I have. I've had the pleasure of that. And there's lots of countries that use multiple currencies. Many countries use a US dollar and their own currency. One thing that's really interesting, though, is if you really want to have control of your own fiscal capacity, you need your own currency. Because right now, imagine this. If Alberta separates and becomes its own nation and uses the Canadian dollar, well, Canada can still print more money and cause inflation. Even though we're an independent nation, if we use their dollar, they can have an impact on our monetary system. So that's why it's important to have our own currency.
I agree. But what I'm thinking, like, more philosophically.
Yes.
Like, what makes us a nation, right? Like, there's got to be something about us that's united and shared and unique enough, right? That makes us a nation. Like, you know, and if we don't have that, then it's like we're kind of just arbitrarily drawing lines on a map. And of course, you could have a currency, right? You could do that 25 more times in Alberta even. Calgary could have their own currency, you know? But like, what makes Albertans unique?
You know what I would say is, as I've studied this, I would say and there's lots of different nations that you can do the junior high history lesson kind of research even, and you'll find out it's a group of people with a shared value that are often responding to a distant controlling empire, as you'll see in some of the later chapters there. I'll call it a force, right? Some distant force
Pushes off.
pushes them, extracts wealth, doesn't, service them well, just like this. It's happened before. That's the thing. And I do want to say this as well, because some people say, oh, you just want to become part of the United States. No. I'm with Keith Wilson on this. We do not want to give up one taskmaster in Ottawa for another one in Washington. We have enough people. We have enough population. We have GDP and GDP per capita, and there's data on here in this book as well, with all kinds of information about tons of other countries that you would look at and you'd say, oh, their population is smaller than Alberta?
Yeah.
You would never think that that's not a country, right? So anyway, yeah.
No, that makes sense, though. So I think Alberta is economically powerful enough, and we're culturally distinct enough, and we're big enough to be a viable nation. And that's what makes me excited about independence, is because I start dreaming about what we can have, right? Once we start putting these ideas to work. Like, I hear nothing but good ideas from Albertans. Nothing but good ideas.
Okay, you want a new crazy idea?
Let's do it.
You might not have heard of this one before.
Let's do it.
I was recently at a business conference in Calgary in the in the Big Four building, the brand new facility, beautiful there. And I was talking with some people at the break about Alberta Independence movement. And some of these folks were from northern BC. And I said, it's interesting. It seems to me that northern BC's culture is much more like Alberta. And when you look at the population density of BC, it's like 65% of the population is Abbotsford to Vancouver. It's literally Chilliwack, right? It's right in that area. And so, okay, what if northern BC joined Alberta? Right? There's talk about Saskatchewan joining Alberta. I don't think anyone's floating the idea that northern BC could join Alberta as well. Okay, now what do you think about a pipeline to Kitimat or Prince Rupert? That changes everything.
It does. Now, here's where Keith Wilson takes a stance on this. Like, he's a lawyer, right? He's like, actually, there is no legal path forward for a province to separate in itself like that. And I'm like, wait a minute. Once Alberta leaves, and Saskatchewan and Quebec go their own way too, because, like, look, that's probably going to happen.
Yes.
It's like, the whole thing has changed. That's such a disruption. Of course, these places are going to be open for division. And everybody, like Fort St. John, all those guys, Kitimat, they're just like Albertans.
They absolutely are. And the thing that people don't realize is we get in our lives, stuck in our spot. I think that you could probably do a quick YouTube search for, give me some kind of visual transformation of the boundaries, the borders of Europe over the last 1,000 years. And you'll see these borders are changing all the time, right? They change all the time. So just because it's been this way for all of our lifetime, it does not mean it has to stay the same.
And so my thought to Keith Wilson, I love him, I support him, right? It's like, we follow the democratic process, the laws that Canada's laid out for us, up to the point where we get a majority. And then after that, we're putting our foot down because we got a majority. We assert our right. We're going to negotiate as much as we have to. And if they don't want to be doing it in good faith, then we leave. And then, you know what? That sets the precedent for northern BC to leave. And I honestly think Yukon probably too. And who knows what the Northwest Territories are going to do. But, the thing is, I don't want to risk growing too big that we have the same problems, because I said earlier that people at Kitimat are just like Albertans, and they might take offense to that. I don't know. Maybe they're so much different from us that they'd be like, no, screw that. We don't want to be part of rural from Calgary, So, okay, but I believe in self-determination. You're right, these maps change. They change. That's the ebb and flow of history.
Absolutely, I'm 100% with you. And the thing that I found most interesting is when I talked to these folks from, and I think it was Fort St. John, their eyes lit up when I talked about the difference between the culture of BC ruled by the Lower Mainland versus the culture in Alberta. Here they were in Calgary attending a business conference. They were like, heck yeah. We're way more like Albertans than we are the avocado toast eating Lower Mainland folks.
So where can people go to buy your book?
My book is available on Amazon, and also I do have a TPA, third-party advertising. It's Alberta Nation Events.
Yeah.
Are we still good to go? Can I tell you a little bit about that?
Tell me a little bit about it. People want to know where the money's going if they donate to you.
Fantastic. Okay, so one of the things that I realized as I did my research for the book, I realized, okay, let's say we do have a successful independence referendum. Who's actually going to be who are the people that are going to implement this new nation?
Yeah.
Well, it's the politicians, John. It's the elected officials.
I know that scares me because really Danielle Smith has a lot of power, and we're kind of not talking about that yet. She could just say no, even if we get a majority.
So this is what I'm doing. I'm in the process. I've emailed them all the MLAs, all the MPs. I've emailed you and I've invited you to a debate. So come on, let's stop the monologue. Let's go, 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3. Let's have your issues, your reasons. Why do you want to stay in Canada? Let's get them out in the open. Let's have them rebutted. And let's have actual, honest, and open debate. So that's what Alberta Nation, and the website is albertanation.events. That's what we're focusing on right now, is we're trying to get politicians to debate us on this idea of Alberta independence.
Well, and that sounds noble, but I'm going to push back because they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. Like, there might be a few candidates, up and coming guys who might stand up and do it. But why would they debate? They have nothing to gain and everything to lose.
I have to agree with you, John, and it's unfortunate. You're right. The response rate that I've been getting from their assistants has been very low. But I think that we can reach out to our politicians. If people in their constituents say, hey, are you going to debate one of those Alberta independence folks? You should. I'd like to see that. I want to know what you think. I want to know why you think we should stay in Canada. I want to know why you think, here's another stat for you, John, another number. It's $729.9 million on average that each riding, federal riding in Alberta, gives to Ottawa in equalization. Let me say that number again. $729.9 million, almost $730 million. It's in my book, it's documented. You can see the numbers there. That's how much each riding. Why are Alberta taxpayers subsidizing the tax bill of people in other provinces? That's what we should be asking our politicians. Come on, stand up and tell us why you think that should continue.
Well, and I agree we should be asking these questions. I went and talked to Jason Steffen, and I told him to his face, and I like Jason, by the way. He's a good man, upstanding man. I want him to be an MLA still, I still like him, okay? But I asked him to his face, I told him to his face, I'm like, independence is about us firing you. It is. Because we're going to throw off the federal government, the provincial government, the municipal government, the king, the whole system of everything. We're throwing it all off, and we're creating our own system. That's what independence is. And the thing is, these guys, they have nothing to gain by talking to us and everything to lose. And so, what do you say to that?
You're absolutely right. And I just want to remind folks that I know Keith Wilson and his group are working on sort of a document to say, hey, here's what we can do. A couple things I want to remind people of. It's the politicians that we elect next October or November, 2027, those are the ones that are going to implement our decision if we say we want to move forward with independence. And then the other thing is, the U.S. declared independence long before they had all their ducks in a row. Yeah. They didn't have everything sorted out. They didn't have everything, all of the stuff arranged that you need to arrange for a new nation. They made the declaration first, and then they sorted out the details. And I know that makes people nervous. We're trying not to do that. There's lots of questions that are answered. Keith Wilson's going to have answers. There's some here. There's some in the Alberta Prosperity book, the Value of Freedom document. So there's all kinds of things there that can alleviate people's fear. That's one of the things I want to say. And there's one more thing. I know you can edit it and put it wherever you want.
No, I don't edit anything in my videos.
Oh, okay.
I'm super lazy. I'll cut out any swears or anything that you tell me you want me to cut out. Or sometimes my camera dies.
So I just want to address because it's not in the book, I want to address the issue about the cost of becoming independent.
Okay.
I know Danielle Smith has identified this massive number of 400 and some billion dollars.
Yeah.
In the Alberta Prosperity Project document, I believe they've said it's going to be about $5 or $6 billion.
Yeah, she later said she just pulled that number out of thin air, though. Like, she said this on some interview I heard her say, but she was just throwing out a big number that she kind of got instinct thought. So
Fantastic. I'll just say this, that the London School of Economics has some research that they've published. You can just go and search it online. London School of Economics, I think it's about 3 or 4% of total GDP is what it would actually cost, and that runs into right around the $5 or $6 billion. I think I have my numbers right there. I might be off by a little bit, but it's nowhere near 400 billion. And so I encourage your viewers to go and do the research. Look for it's the London School of Economics, and it's about becoming a sovereign nation.
Okay, London School of Economics. That sounds like the socialist group in England, is it? Aren't they a bunch of socialists?
No idea. I
don't know.
They've got some reports on, I believe it's Ireland and Quebec, and they're very insightful. Just go read the reports, and you'll know that if we're giving $27 billion in equalization to the feds to give mostly to Quebec, but also to the Maritimes and Manitoba, $27 billion, and it's going to cost $5 or $6 billion for us to break out of that, well worth it.
Yeah.
Well worth it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Richard, thank you so much.
Thank you, John. It was a pleasure to see you again, sir.
It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure to meet you. Thanks for the interview. And everybody, please go check out the link below. I'll leave a link to his website, and then you can check out his book and consider donating to him. And I think that there's a lot of people working towards the same goal, so don't be afraid to spread out your donations a little bit. Consider who you want to support. So thank you so much.
Thanks, John.
All right.
Wish you all the best.
Cheers, everybody. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Forgot to say that.